This is a weekly summary of interesting news that is relevant for my distributed systems lecture at the Eastern University of Applied Sciences in Switzerland. My name is Thomas Bocek, and today we will discuss 5 topics. The first topic is about open source software supply chain security. It's the following article here. It describes how here in March a developer at Microsoft discovered a backdoor in liblcma, a compression library linked to SSH on Debian and on other systems as well. Not all of them, but for sure those Debian-based and some other ones. This backdoor allowed attackers to execute arbitrary shell commands when SSH received specific unusual input. The attack, known as the XZ attack, shows that software supply chain security concerns haven't fundamentally changed in 50 years. The article defines an open source software supply chain attack as the insertion of harmful code into trusted software before delivery. Software supply chain security involves creating defenses against such attacks and vulnerabilities. The complexity of modern software makes this challenging. Even simple programs have hundreds of dependencies. A key defense is authenticating software through cryptographic signatures, which prevent code modification between signing and verification. Another approach is using trusted databases of expected cryptographic hashes for dependencies, like the Go checksum database. Making builds reproducible is also important so that binary can be verified against source code. Regular vulnerability scanning using tools helps identify known issues quickly. The XZ attack succeeded partly because an attacker spent 2 years building trust with the original maintainer through helpful contributions before eventually taking over the project. This highlights how underfunding of open source projects makes them vulnerable. Maintainers often welcome free help without enough resources to properly verify who's providing it. While the article mentions signature, reproducible builds, hashes, it does not mention containerization. While this does not solve the problem that when you push contaminated code to production via a dependency, however, it protects the developer and his machine from malicious code, which is also an increasing attack vector. Well, and it's funny, as academia was pushing to reuse code since the early days, now that we reuse a lot of code, and with that we see an increasing amount of supply chain attacks. The next topic is about a study by Anthropic. It's the following article here, and this recent study by Anthropic analyzed 1 million anonymized student conversations with the Claude AI Assistant. I'm also using the Claude AI Assistant, but I did not take part in this study. The study found that computer science students are the heaviest users, accounting for 36% of conversations. STEM students generally adopt AI tools earlier than those in business, health, and humanities. The research identified 4 main interaction patterns using at roughly equal rates: direct problem solving, so getting quick answers; direct output creation, generating content with minimal engagement; collaborative problem solving, working throughout problems together; and collaborative output creation, jointly creating longer outputs, each at approximately equal rates. Students primarily used AI for creating educational content and getting technical explanations or solutions. And when analyzed using the Bloom taxonomy, AI systems are most often handling higher order cognitive tasks like creating and analyzing, rather than simple tasks like remembering fact. And the article raises the interesting question if students offloading critical cognitive tasks to AI systems. The researchers noted concerns about academic integrity as some students use AI for questionable purposes like answering test questions or rewriting texts to avoid plagiarism detection. So from my experience so far, for the simple things, I Google, DuckDuckGo, the simple questions, but ask questions to the AI if it's more complex to understand it also more quicker. So I don't think it's an offloading of critical cognitive tasks, but rather to get this task done quicker and to learn quicker. So for my lecture, please use AI tools for the challenge task. And there is another interesting article. This is from Stanford. It's the Artificial Intelligence Index report, and it has 12 key messages. The most important one, I think, is number 12. And this goes in the direction of AGI, artificial general intelligence, and it's not there yet and probably never will, but nevertheless, AI is still very useful and also very interesting numbers here in this report. The next article is about pricing. It's the following article here. Microsoft has announced a 10% price increase for its on-premise server licensing starting July 2025. This affects Exchange Server, SharePoint Server, and Skype for Business Server. This price hike is part of Microsoft's strategy to push customers towards cloud subscriptions. The company is introducing subscription editions of Exchange Server and Skype for Business Server, similar to how SharePoint transitioned from a 3-year version cycle to a cloud-based product with regular updates. Customers will need either active software assurance or use subscriptions for all users and devices to access these subscription-based servers. Microsoft justifies these changes as necessary to support ongoing maintenance and updates for on-premise products. The timing aligns with Microsoft's earlier announcement that Exchange 2016 and 2019 will reach end of life in October 2025. Customers must either migrate to Exchange Online or adopt the new Exchange Server Subscription Edition. Microsoft continues to shift its business model from traditional licensing to subscription-based services with clear financial incentives pushing organizations toward cloud solutions. At our company, we also had a few Microsoft licenses, and I remember that when an employee left, we were paying for years about 120 Swiss francs, as the credit card statement was super generic. It just mentions it's something from Microsoft, and 120 Swiss francs was too much of a hassle to investigate what this charge is. But when we shut down the company, we had to investigate, and it turned out it was Microsoft 365 apps for business that we paid for 4 years without actually using it. And I bet in larger companies, there are much more licenses and seats not being used. So this revenue model could be profitable for Microsoft. The next topic is about self-hosted calendar solutions. It's the following article here. And the author here has detailed their journey to create a self-hosted calendar system to control their personal data. Frustrated with commercial calendar options, she built a solution that meets several key requirements, allowing events to show as blockers in their work calendar, enabling family to subscribe to the calendar, eliminating duplicate data entry, and maintaining full control of their data. The solution uses Baikal, a lightweight self-hostable CalDAV server running in Docker with Nginx as a reverse proxy. The system integrates with multiple data sources, email via IMAP, and a flight tracker, a language school calendar. A Python script pulls these sources, pushes events to Baikal, and generates shareable ICS files that can be subscribed to privately. The author created an event taxonomy using Python enums to categorize different event types like meeting and appointments with specific handling for work private events. She also implemented a Google script that reads their calendar and adds color-coded entries to the work calendar. And this distributed system addresses frustrations with commercial calendar solutions while allowing the users to maintain privacy and control. It shows that decentralized self-hosted alternatives can provide more flexibility than corporate solutions, though at the cost of technical complexity and fun, of course, and hosting expenses. Here, approximately $100 a month for server time, which I find quite high. I'm also self-hosting my own calendar, but I'm using Nextcloud. And similarly to the author, I had to write Google scripts to sync calendars as the internal Google Calendar Sync had issues with updates. So I wrote my own. The last article is about localhost, also an issue we had at St. Gallen last week, how to access localhost on Docker and Docker Compose. Here, the developer has shared a useful method for creating custom domains for local web applications, making them easier to access. So if you have multiple applications, then you only have one porty 80. So then if this is used, then you have to use something else. And so instead of typing localhost and the port, he simply can use the app name .localhost and access the local app here. He configures etc. hosts, which has the following format here, and this redirects traffic or resolves this name to localhost, and in the caddy file he has here the same name that resolves to localhost, and this does a reverse proxy to localhost where the application is running on port 5050. This technique is useful for developers working with multiple local services in distributed systems, allowing easier management of the various components. He also mentioned here launch the daemon, so that means he launches the app on his system. In the past, I used to do this as well, and I also had a script that added and removed entries in etc. hosts. However, since I'm trying to switch to a container-based dev environment, I no longer need it, so I don't redirect on localhost. In my case, I try to do as much as possible everything in a Dockerized environment. So that's it from my side. See you next week.